Alright, people, review of the week time. So, before we look at any of the boxing news, we hear about some of Matchroom's new signings, we talk about this, that and the other, what's next for Canelo, etc. We'll talk about the fights that happen over the course of the weekend, Friday to Saturday. Obviously, Friday, there was a show on in Rotterdam, which was on Fight Zone. Now, the main event was Tommy Frank versus Jay Harris for the British flyweight title. Jay Harris, I've actually interviewed him on this channel before, great guy. He won the British flyweight title. Now, very good fight, very entertaining fight. He stopped Tommy Frank in the 10th round. Rocky moments in there for Jay Harris, but he came through with him. Great little fight. Fight Zone, which is, I believe, free now. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It used to be £4 a month. I believe it's free now. They put on some very good shows. They put on the kind of lesser seen shows. But if there's, say, a Friday night, if they have a show on, there's nothing on TV, I'm pretty sure it's free to make an account now and watch their shows. There you go. I mean, you can't really go wrong. So that was the only real fight on Friday I was interested in. If we go and we talk about the Boxer show now, which is the main card that was on in the UK over the course of the weekend, it was, it wasn't amazing, to say the least, the whole show. You know, Sean McComb beat Kassim Benjamin. I was surprised there. Fair play to Sean McComb, to be fair, but I was surprised. I thought that might be a bit of a banana skin for him. Tyler Denny continues his good form. He got a split decision win over Macaulay McGuinn. So Tyler Denny shows that a loss isn't the end of the world. And yes, he has 2 losses, but he's been doing very well as of late. He's been going the distance, yes, but he's been winning well. Obviously, the talking point is Ben Whittaker. I've seen a lot of people say that they didn't like his performance, that they find him just a bit too arrogant. And I said that before he even turned over. I said Ben Whittaker is going to rub a lot of people up the wrong way because he is a very arrogant chap, which is, there is healthy levels of narcissism, as Freud would say. There definitely is. And he is going to be in there trying to do a Prince Naseem impression and just showboating. It's going to rub certain people up the wrong way. Right, but look past that and look at the talent that he has. He is a very talented fighter. He certainly is. He's probably, out of the Tokyo 2020 squad, he's the one I have the highest hopes for that came from Team GB, of course. So let's look aside of the showboating, and I think we've got a very good fighter on our hands here. Now, this was his first fight in a while, I think 9 months. In there with Jordan Grant. Now, I said this in the preview for this, that I wasn't happy with Jordan Grant as an opponent. He's an opponent that Tommy Fury's beaten. And Ben Whittaker is levels above Tommy Fury. Levels above him. So, for me, that's a case of a real step down. So, hopefully they can get him back out quickly. And he'll be in there with a much better opponent. You know, really, I really do hope so. Because for me, it was a case of, like, why in God's name are you putting him in there with someone like that? I just couldn't understand it. I really couldn't. Corey Gibbs beat Jimmy First, great name. That was a rematch from last year. Jimmy First won their last meeting. He has now avenged that loss as Corey Gibbs. And in the main event, we had Joshua Buatsi versus Powell Stephen. Don't really saying that name, probably butchering that name. Alright, but we all know how that fight went. It was a glorified sparring session. It really was. You know, Joshua Buatsi has been pro now since 2017. He won bronze medal at Rio in 2016. He was one of the guys on the Rio squad that I did have hopes for, because that squad in 2016 was not particularly great. Joe Joyce, there was a good bit of hope for him to do well at heavyweight, and you know, he's not had a terrible career. He's made some good money. Obviously he's still knocking around, but he's not won a world title yet. Joe Cordina, he was kind of the dark horse because he was someone who went under the radar, and he's done great things. Lawrence Okoli, I really didn't expect much from him as a pro. I really didn't. But he's obviously gone on to win a world title at cruiserweight. Guys like Fowler, Kelly, I'm just trying to think who else. There was other people as well, Felix Cash. They've kind of languished, you know, at domestic level, European level, kind of stuff like that. But Buatsi was the one I really had high hopes for. And to be honest with you, the way his career has gone, it's been a bit of a disappointment. Like at this stage, well, it's definitely been a disappointment. He's not getting any younger. He's still languishing around the domestic level / European level stage. And I would have thought by now he would have at least have fought for a world title. You know, he didn't push on after Craig Richards. He's not looked good in his last couple of fights now. He's not really looked good since Raymond Ford in 2019. So with Buatsi, the way he looked in there last night, I wonder what was wrong. I wonder, was he jet lagged? Was he injured? Did he have a hard weight cut? Because that didn't look like the Buatsi even who fought Craig Richards. He was missing something. There was no intensity there, which we're used to seeing from Buatsi. There was none of that. He just seemed so lackluster in that fight. It was bizarre, really bizarre. And, if you're a boxer and you're Ben Shalom, you've signed two fighters who have started their career at Matchroom. Matchroom has brought them along, and now you've signed them. And both occasions now they've stunk the joint out. I mean, there was pictures going of what the arena in Birmingham looked like, and it looked empty, half empty anyway. There was no real atmosphere. And, that whole card, the boxing card, wasn't great. So for me, it was like, I mean, what? I don't know. What is Ben Shalom doing over there? I think that a lot of things need to change at Sky. I think that the team that he has, the punditry team, the interviewers, etc., are not particularly good, to say the least. I think that some of the signings he's made have been questionable. Also, given the fact some of the signings he has made have left after a fight or haven't even made their debut. In the case of Jack Catterall, who jumped ship. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of work needs to be done, and maybe now we're seeing the inexperience of Ben Shalom, because we need to remember, right? I mean, for me, I never heard of Ben Shalom until Frank Warren mentioned him in an interview when Eddie Hearn left Sky. And Ben Shalom's in his late 20s. He's no background in this. Well, he's no major background in the sport of boxing promoting. Eddie Hearn, at least, had his dad, Barry Hearn, who was running Matchroom, running the boxing shows for years before him. So Eddie Hearn knew how the business worked, whereas Ben Shalom just come in and, I really don't, he says all the right things. He conducts himself okay in interviews. He's not got much charisma, but the actual product is I just don't think it's good enough. And, signing a Coley and telling him he's going to be the face of boxing, I mean, I'm sure Lawrence Coley didn't even believe that. Joshua Buatsi, again, these guys are not household names. And you could be the best promoter in the world. You could have a major network like Sky pushing you. But if you don't have the style, you don't have the charisma, you're not an endearing person, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's never going to work for you. And I think a lot of fighters struggle to kind of get out of that bubble. I mean, you look at Lerone Richards. Lerone Richards is what Lerone Richards is, right? He's a good boxer. He's not a big puncher. He's not entertaining to watch for the most part. And he's not really an outgoing, charismatic type guy. So what Eddie Hearn was doing with him, and again, people are going to be like, gee, you're bigging up Eddie Hearn, this, that, and the other. Well, what he was doing with guys like Lerone Richards was putting them on co-main events on big cards, at least trying to get their name out. So if he was to put them on as a head of a show, say in the York Hall or something like that, people would know about it. Whereas these guys decided, that's not good enough, we want more money, we want more exposure. But it's like, what do you think Sky are going to do? Yes, Sky is a bigger platform, no doubt, but they're not miracle workers. They're not going to turn you into the next Joshua or Carl Froch at the end of the day when you go in there and it's, you're boring the pants off an insomniac. There's only so much you can do. And there's only so much someone like Hearn could do. Hearn could never turn, in my opinion, a Buatsi or a Coley into a star. This is just never going to happen. He could never turn Lerone Richards into a star, but he can at least try and get them known enough to the point where, okay, we can do our own shows with you, or you're always going to be a solid co-feature. But a Coley face the Sky, really? I mean, I'm sure a Coley didn't even believe that. So that's my thoughts on the whole boxer show. Now we get to Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder. So I already done a review of that this morning. Canelo Alvarez beats John Ryder, 12-round points decision. Credit to John Ryder, though, he stuck in it, to be fair. I was very, very worried that he would just look to survive. In terms of the undercard, Julio Cesar Martinez got a stoppage. I think it was in the... Yeah, it was. It was in the 11th round, sorry. It was in the 10th round for some reason. Ronald Batista, that was his first fight back in a while. And obviously, we also saw Ricardo Bolotniks get stopped in 6 rounds by Alexander Vodcek. Vodcek on the comeback trail. So Vodcek's going to be an interesting one, because it's not like he's taken massive punishment in his career. Against Beterbiev he got beat, but other than that, he's never taken that much damage. So he's an interesting addition for the light heavyweight division. Now, in terms of the whole Matchroom, the Zone card itself, and some of the signings match, because we'll talk about Canelo now in a wee bit, right? But Eddie Hearn at that show tweeted that he's going to unveil some signings, right? The first one was Regis Prograis. So Regis Prograis is now a Matchroom fighter. He will defend his WBC super lightweight world titles in New Orleans against Liam Paro. So he signed a deal to fight on the Zone moving forward. And that's a good move for Hearn, because I rate Regis Prograis, as you know, very, very highly. I think he's going to beat Liam Paro. I think that Jack Catterall is fighting now come Lara Wood too. I think he's on that undercard. So it would be logical for them two to meet hopefully in the autumn, provided they both get through their respective fights. I think it's a good signing. I think that Regis Prograis is a very formidable opponent for anyone. I mean, like guys like Teofimo Lopez, I don't know how Teofimo Lopez, obviously I don't think he'll get through Josh Taylor, but I don't even think he'd get through Regis Prograis. Prograis is a tremendous talent. You know, if him and Taylor were to fight 10 times, I reckon it would be 6-4 in favour of Taylor. He would beat Taylor at least more than once. He's a great fighter as Regis Prograis. Very good fighter. So that's a very good signing to have. And obviously he's a current world champion. But Regis Prograis, in the nicest way, pales in comparison to the next signing that Eddie Hearn has made. Because this really is, I'm very happy with this, right? Very happy that this guy is turning pro. Andy Cruz has signed a promotional deal with Eddie Hearn Matchroom and the Zone to turn pro. Yes, Andy Cruz is one of the best Cuban amateurs probably of all time. He is tremendously talented. Have you ever seen any of his videos or any of his fights, any of his highlight videos? He is the man. Keyshawn Davis just could not get the grips with as an amateur. Couldn't get the grips with him. Although in the final of the Olympics it was probably their closest fight. But Andy Cruz is that good. He is a tremendous talent, and I hope to God Eddie Hearn doesn't do what he did with Daniel Yurlusinov, because Yurlusinov should have been world champion. I think he's retired now. Should have been world champion. Hearn didn't do enough with him, in my opinion, and at the time Sky were so fixated on Josh Kelly that they gave very unfair to Yurlusinov when Yurlusinov was just getting into the pro games. And, you know, he was fighting some of these guys, you know, these just fringe contenders, journeymen and all of that. And it's like, well, Josh Kelly is better. Well, what's Josh Kelly done? He's won a British title, but he got barred from pillar to post against David Avanesian. And that was just Sky being their usual just clown of himself, just being like, oh, well, you know, he's our golden boy, and this guy, we don't know him, so we're not gonna give him any credit. Whereas Josh Kelly misses a left hook, gets hit with a right hand. Oh, he's tremendous, isn't he? That was what Sky were like back then. They really were horrendous with Daniel Yurlusinov. So I hope they don't, well, obviously he's not with Sky now, but I hope the same thing doesn't happen with Andy Cruz. Andy Cruz is tremendous. He really is tremendous. What an addition to the lightweight division Andy Cruz is going to be. I am so happy he's turning pro. I didn't care who he turned pro with. I actually thought he might turn pro with Top Rank because of the fact they have Keyshawn Davis. And that obviously is going to be the fight to make, because it's one thing to beat him. I don't think Keyshawn Davis has ever beaten Andy Cruz. I think they fought 4 or 5 times. I don't think he's ever beaten him. But that's over 3 rounds. Let's go for 12. Let's see. I'm so happy that Andy Cruz is turning pro, because there was a lot of talk that he wouldn't be able to get out of Cuba. There was a lot of. Well, I was worried at this stage last year. I was getting a bit worried that he may actually not get a chance to turn over, which would have been a travesty, because he is one of the most talented fighters you'll ever see. I know I'm bigging him up before you see, but I'm telling you now, go and look at some of his amateur fights. Go and look at the highlights of him. This is a guy. The saying, making something very difficult look very easy, and that's Andy Cruz. That is all I can say. That's Andy Cruz. He really is. He really, truly is fantastic. He really is. So, Alvarez obviously beat John Ryder last night. He has said that he wants to fight Dimitri Bivol next. He's eyeing Dimitri Bivol for Bivol's WBA light heavyweight world titles. Everybody knows we want a rematch with Bivol. Same rules, same terms, same everything. I want it that way, like the Backstreet Boys. He wants it that way. So, Canelo Alvarez versus Dimitri Bivol 2, possibly in September. You know, I talked about it with Jamie on Thursday night. For me, the fight that would make the most sense if I was in his team and I was in an advisory role or a matchmaker role, I'd be saying, let's go for Badou Jack in Saudi. Get a king's ransom for the Saudis to pay Canelo over there. And you technically, well, you will be a 5-time world or 5-division world champion. So there's legacy on top of that. The Bivol fight will always be there. That's the fight I'd be taking. If Canelo was fixated on the Bivol rematch, so be it. Bivol is a better fighter than Canelo. In my opinion, he's just tremendously talented. And he will beat Canelo. But will he get the decision? Therein is the big question. Because for me, when I hear people talk about Bivol Canelo 2, a lot of people are very dismissive and they say, oh, Canelo can't beat Bivol. And yeah, look, I'd be picking Bivol strongly. I'd be strongly favouring over Canelo Alvarez. But we need to just remember, right, since when all of a sudden has Bivol become this, massive A-side cash cow fighter? He hasn't. He's not pushed on in that respect from the Canelo win. Obviously, it was a great win over Zurdo. The judges are still going to favour Canelo. He's still going to have the boxing establishment on his side. Bear in mind, one of the judges, for God's sake, gave the first 4 rounds of the first fight to Canelo. I don't know how he did that. He didn't do anything. But somehow he gave Canelo the first 4 rounds. Bizarre. And I said to Jamie, as much as 2% better is all Canelo needs to be to make the difference between losing a round and winning a round. And bear in mind, if he had landed maybe 2 or 3 more clean punches in 2 of the rounds he lost, that could flip the fight and he could have won a split decision. I'm not saying deservedly. Now understand, I'm not saying Canelo would have deserved to have beaten Dimitri Bivol that night. No, Bivol was the rightful winner. But that is Canelo Alvarez, the kind of sway he has in the boxing establishment. So why people think that a rematch will go any different and all of a sudden the judges will be on equal terms or maybe be on Bivol's side is beyond me. They won't be. Canelo is a massive cash cow. So if Canelo is even 2% better than he was against Bivol, and Bivol is maybe the same as he was against Canelo the first time round, that could be the difference between Canelo winning and Bivol losing. And I'm not saying Canelo will deserve to win, but you got to understand the boxing. We see it time and time again. Every country in the world, well, certainly in Europe and America, we've seen it countless times. You look at France, Ireland, for God's sake. We do it the same as the UK. When there's no title involved, the referee scores the fight. But when there is titles involved and stuff like that, we get judges in. And some of the judges over here can't score. Well, they can score a fight, but they always score for the home fighter. Sometimes they don't, but they, believe me, try and give it to them. So it happens everywhere. It's endemic across boxing. So what makes you think that it's going to be any different if Canelo fights Bivol again? I don't think it will be. Now, I'll be picking Bivol, but I would not be surprised if we see some absolute repulsive scorecards in that fight. It really wouldn't surprise me at all. In terms of some of the other news that's knocking around, now I've seen this, right? So Conor Benn issued an apology with some of the most I'll quote him, but this was with seconds out, right? I was a bit bitter towards the boxing community. A bit bitter. Okay. I was angry. I'm an emotional guy. Well, you got that from your dad, because Nigel was very emotional. The way I dealt with it wasn't right. You don't say. I apologise to the public. This is the guy who said, I hope the apology is louder than the criticism, was it? Or something like that. Now, why is this happening? So, for me, it's one of two things, right? One, the UCAD situation is going to go better for Conor Benn than he thinks, and maybe they'll give him a backdated ban to September, October last year for a year, so he'll be back in the ring by October this year. Maybe that's what it is, and he's thinking, crap, if I'm fighting in the UK again, I really don't want the fans hating me, so I'm going to backtrack on it. Option two is that he's now had to say, right, I can't do this. I can't get licensed in another country because of the issue that's going on with the board in the UCAT. I can't get over to the Saudis because it's going to affect the other fighters as well, who they don't want to risk. If they beat Conor Benn, they don't want to be like, well, I can't fight in the UK because now I'm in trouble. I'm up, what's creek without a paddle. So now he's come to the realization, okay, I can't get around this. I'm going to have to play ball, and I'm going to have to sing UCAD's song, basically. Only problem there is he was just having a go at them so much, saying so much this, that, and the other, talking about suing the board. And I know UCAD are the ones doing all this. I don't think the board are having much involvement in it. But the way he was, just how he was conducting himself, he's probably realised now, crap, I need to make sure I need to make sure that I'm bigging UCAD up so they don't slap me with a big ban and then backdate it to March this year, because that's when they provisionally suspended him for. So I reckon that could be it with Conor Benn. At the end of the day, this is a guy who was so belligerent when all this came out. And if you look at someone like Tyson Fury, when he had his issues with UCAD, right? Fury was smart enough to know, keep your mouth shut, don't mention UCAD. He made a couple of videos now and again saying, I'll be fighting in Spain in May, when we knew that was never going to be the case because he was grotesquely overweight. We knew it was more banter than anything else. He never alluded to it until it all was said and done a few years later, and they backdated the ban to I think 2 years. It meant that he served his ban, right? And it was all said and done, right? He never went out and said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to sue this, and all you people, oh yeah, you're all going to be sorry, you're all going to be, it's like, mate, that is going to rear up and bite you in the ass real quick if you do that. And all you're going to do is you're going to peeve boxing fans off. They're going to look at you, which they are doing, like you're a spoiled brat with this sense of entitlement. You're saying the board have a vendetta against me because my dad threw his license away. It's like, mate, really? They've been waiting 30 years and now they have their chance and now they're going to take it out on you. Really, think logically for 2 seconds about all this. Although Conor Benn doesn't think logically, because he might just rival Deontay Wilder in terms of being the dumbest fighter in the world, in terms of just sheer brains. So that's the whole situation with Conor Benn. Look, we'll watch this situation as it goes on. Conor Benn, do I expect him to fight in the UK again? Yeah, I do. Anytime soon, remains to be seen. He's young enough that he could get... Like, at the end of the day, right, Conor Benn is not a fighter who's in his early 30s, say 32, 33, who can't afford a 2-year ban. I think the best thing that these could have done from the get-go would have been just to keep their mouth shut. If they knew the walls were closing in, just say, look, hold my hands up, messed up, didn't intentionally do it, but I should have watched what I ate, my fault. How long's the ban? 18 months. Backdate it to when? Backdate it. We'll knock, say, 6 months off it, so it's only, 12 months. We'll take it. Right, fine. We'll fight in a year. People have forgot about it. Start again. I'll still be in my 20s. It's not that much of a loss. Could have done that. No, he didn't. And worst case scenario, it's not going to be good. So that's a situation there with Conor Benn. Very strange fight that's been announced for August the 5th. Very strange. The WBA have granted a special permit to allow Erislandy Lara to defend his world middleweight title against Danny Swift Garcia. Winner will be ordered to face mandatory challenger Michael Zarafa. Danny Garcia has never fought at 160 pounds. What the hell? Like, why? Like, he's never fought at 160. He's had one fight at 154 pounds. I can't remember who that was against. And now he's getting a crack at Erislandy Lara at 160. Make that make sense, WBA. What is the point in having... Like, they turn around and they say stuff like, oh, you must be in the top 15 in order to get a shot, right? Danny Garcia's never had a fight at middleweight and he's getting a crack at the WBA title. Why? Explain that to me. Oh, Jesus. It is a strange fight. It's a very strange fight. Lara versus Garcia. Never thought I'd see it. I would make Erislandy Lara a favourite, truth be told. I know Lara's seen better days, but... I mean, I haven't been impressed with Danny Garcia. Well, Danny Garcia was never a fighter I ever looked at and was really impressed with. Very flat-footed fighter. I never rated Danny Garcia that highly. He's alright. Don't get me wrong, he's not a bad fighter, but I've never thought of him as being one of the elites. Certainly when he was down at welterweight or down at 140. So that's just a strange fight. Strange fight. In terms of some of the other stuff that's been going on around there, this is actually a really good fight, actually. Jaime Munguia is actually going to face Sergey Derevyanchenko at middleweight on June the 10th in California. California, here they come. So that's actually a good fight for Jaime Munguia. Although Derevyanchenko's lost his last couple of fights, I don't think he's lost more than he's won out of his last few fights. He is still better than some of the opponents that Jaime Munguia has been in there with. So he's back down at middleweight. I thought he was leaving middleweight. Now he's back down there now. So let's see how he gets on down there. Eddie Hearn has stated that Joshua and Derek James want to fight before December, July the 29th or August the 5th as potential dates. So yeah, they want to have that summer date, but I think it's all dependent apparently on what the Saudis say, whether they want it to go ahead or not. If they say they don't want they don't want him or Wilder to fight between now and then, I think they're going to have to draw a line in the sand and say, right, fine, next time we fight will be in December. And obviously, the big news as well is that Tyson Fury versus Zhilei Zhang is reportedly, Bob Arum is saying he's trying to get that over the line over this weekend. So hopefully we could have an announcement on that soon. And as I said in the video, Fury versus Zhang, I'm perfectly happy with that fight. At the end of the day, if we get Usyk versus Fury in December, fine, fair enough. If the both guys have to have a fight in between, again, fine, fair enough. If it's Fury versus Zhang, I really don't have a problem with that fight. I really don't. I think it's actually an interesting fight. It's an intriguing fight. I make Fury favourite, certainly. But it's intriguing because Fury, yeah, he's against the southpaws. I think that the left hand is a bit problematic for Fury. He needs to be a bit switched on. A bit more switched on, I should say. And against Zhang, he's definitely going to want to be switched on because Zhang has the power to take Fury's head clean off his shoulders. Zhang will be very dangerous early on, but if Fury can just stay on his toes, stay sharp, Zhang tends to fade. So I reckon Fury's best chance to win would be late on, or most likely will win late on, and maybe stop Zhang or win a very wide points decision. So look, I'm all for it. I'd rather that than Andy Ruiz, truth be told. I think Ruiz is more tailor-made for Fury. So if we get Zhang versus Fury and I'd love to see Hrgovic versus Usyk. I would. I think it's a more competitive fight than Dubois. But we're probably going to get Dubois versus Usyk instead. Look, I'll watch it. I will. But I'm pretty sure that that's a formality for Alexander Usyk against Daniel Dubois. I really am. I just can't see, based off that Kevin Lerena performance, I just can't see how Daniel I can't really, based upon that performance, Bacoli and people like that, I mean, he'd struggle badly against those guys based upon that performance. How the hell he'd manage against Alexander Usyk is beyond me. It's not going to end well. So that's pretty much the news in a nutshell. I hope I haven't gone too long, and if you don't want to keep it under a half hour, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on everything I talked about in this video. For now, lads and lassies, I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.